Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to New Wave Global. I'm Rabia Mahmood. New Wave is an independent news site relying on your feedback and looking at the world through a South Asian lens. Please do subscribe, like, and comment on our discussions. Today, we would be doing a deep dive into the H1-B visa linked attacks on the Indian, primarily on social media platform X, formerly Twitter, and these attacks took place in December 2024. To discuss this with us, we have Diksha Udupa, who is a digital research analyst at the Center for the Study of Organized Hates, Disinformation and Digital Security Program. The Center for the Study of Organized Hate is a Washington based think tank where they research the global networks of far right extremist groups and their strategic use of social media to advance their ideologies. Diksha also has a background in fact checking and worked at The Nation, a left leaning publication in the United States. Diksha, welcome to the New Wave Global.
Thank you.
First, please tell us about the H1B visa and what exactly is this controversy? What is behind it? And then we'll get to the research study which you were a part of.
Yeah, so essentially, the H-1B visa is a temporary visa category that allows employers to hire highly educated foreign professionals to work in quote unquote specialty occupations. These occupations generally require at least a bachelor's degree, so they are more highly educated. Jobs in fields such as mathematics, engineering, technology, and medicine are often how people come with an H-1B visa. So on December 22nd, so at the very end of December of last year, President Trump or President-elect Trump announced that Sriram Krishnan would serve as a senior White House policy advisor for AI. So Krishnan has spoke openly about the challenges of navigating U.S. immigration and had previously and consistently still advocates for raising the country-based green card caps. So this was one kind of part of how the backlash began. We saw far-right activist Laura Loomer, who criticized Krishnan's appointment and claimed it to be deeply disturbing and said that appointing Krishnan conflicts with Trump's America First agenda. And she also accused Krishnan of advocating to remove all restrictions on green card caps and enabling foreign workers to take jobs from American STEM graduates. And again, like you see this narrative of immigrants replacing American labor, which we can talk about later. And then a couple of days later, on the 26th of December, Vivek Ramaswamy, who previously ran for president and who is now appointed to lead the proposed Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk, he posted a tweet on X where he criticized quote unquote normal American culture with that of foreign born engineers, labeling American culture as mediocre. And quite frankly, his tweet was open to criticism on various grounds. It was packed with generalizations about American culture, as well as, this culture of quote unquote foreigners, and on that same vein, immigrants. And we did see a lot of kind of criticism of Ramaswamy on those grounds. But at the same time, we also saw a clear rise in anti-Indian hateful rhetoric. And we contextualized a lot of this hateful rhetoric in just the larger xenophobia that is kind of that comes out of the American far right, which was, yeah, that was a big kind of larger framework that we wanted to put this study in. And we also had seen a lot of the Hindu right in America kind of taking a lot of these tweets and using them to kind of bolster their Hindu phobia narrative. And we saw Congressman Sri Tanedar tweet about, this being a form of Hindu phobia. And we also really wanted to show with data that this is not Hindu phobia. This is more broadly anti-Indian, which includes Indians of all faiths, and of all backgrounds. So we really also wanted to kind of push back on another far right kind of vehicle that was being used in all of this. Yeah.
Okay, so far right of both sides use this event or incident to push forward their own narratives. So I want to now coming to the study. What did you study? What did you investigate? How and what were the findings? And how X was used to amplify this narrative? I believe the research was just looked at tweets, right? Not other social media. So can you
Yeah.
explain to us the exact research now?
Yeah. It's funny, I had shared this research with a friend, and the first thing he said was he was like, I've been seeing this all on Instagram too. So I think we also need to remember that this study is on X, but this hate is beyond just one app, you know? So we basically we analyzed 128 tweets, and we specifically looked at a time just I think about 10 to 12 days of tweets. And um, we looked for tweets that were targeting Indians broadly within the Western context. And so we basically, in our database, we received a total of 138.5 million views. Um, and we basically had created a log of 85 X accounts, 64 of which are subscribed to X Premium and display a blue badge on their profile. So in order to kind of create our database, we looked at posts that most clearly violated one or more of X's content policies. Um, Specifically, we looked at the hateful conduct incitement policy, the slurs and tropes policy, the dehumanization policy, and then the abusive profile information policy. So all of the tweets that we documented and analyzed violated one or more of those policies. Um, and so we
Which policies would these be? Can you also just mention that?
like explain what they are.
Yes, explain what they are.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, the hateful conduct incitement policy is essentially inciting fear or spreading fearful stereotypes about a protected category. Um, the slurs and tropes policy is within, again, the hateful conduct policy, and it states that X prohibits targeting others with repeated slurs, tropes, or other content that intends to degrade or reinforce negative or harmful stereotypes about a protected category. The third kind of policy we're looking at, it was within the hateful conduct policy. Again, it's the dehumanization one, and basically states that X prohibits the dehumanization of a group of people based on their religion, caste, age, disability, serious disease, national origin, race, ethnicity, gender. So basically saying that X prohibits dehumanization, discrimination on the basis of identities. And then the final policy we looked at was the abusive profile information policy, which basically states that the information in the profile that includes abusive and racist slurs, violent threats, or dehumanization of individual or groups is prohibited on X. Um, so again, like our data set included posts against all Indian origin people, regardless of faith. And we basically collected posts between December 22nd, which is when Shriram was appointed, until January 2nd. And then the vast majority of these posts were in the time frame of the 27th through the 31st of December. And of the 128 posts, 36 received over 1 million views. So the second half of your question was what was X's role in all of this, right? So I kind of want to switch over to that if that's okay with you.
Yes.
So we saw various posts in which an account was posting a lot of hateful content on, but the posts in this time frame that were about hate specifically towards Indians were receiving incredibly more engagement than the rest of their posts in that same time frame. So that kind of seeing that with multiple posts demonstrated that these posts were receiving higher engagement and were being amplified to users. Um, and we also saw that there were many posts in which the number of views was considerably higher than the number of followers that an account had, which again highlights how posts against Indian origin people in the Western context may currently be beneficial for X creators right now because it gives them greater exposure and engagement from also followers who do not follow the account. Um, so when you think about this in the larger framework of X's algorithm, X's algorithm, like that of other social media platforms, it privileges views, reach, and visibility over quality or insight. So it's not, anything new to say that controversial, sensational, prejudiced, and often hateful views receive more engagement. So basically, when we think about X's business model, it has incentivized hate speech because hate speech is now an opportunity to monetize and build fame and influence and a following. Yeah.
Okay, there is some stuff to unpack here. Because when you say that these were about 128 accounts, I was reading up on this, and 128 accounts, and there were millions of engagement on those accounts.
I said 128 posts.
Posts, okay, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
128
It
posts
was 85
and
accounts.
85 accounts, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
125 8 posts, and then millions of impressions and engagement and interactions on those posts. And considering the fact that each accounts, 85 accounts, might not have a very high number of followers, does that indicate or show that there was a coordinated nature to this attack or this smear campaign, or was that just organic?
Um,
Like coordinated, organized racism online? Or do you think like far right just organizes, has its own ways of organizing and responding to such posts?
I don't know that I can fully claim that it was an organized or coordinated approach. I can only speak on the research that I did and my own theories, I guess. I mean, I think there was a lot of ammunition. I think when you think about even beyond like this anti-Indian hate, just the level of xenophobia that a lot of the far right carries. Um, we've seen it time and time again with various, communities. We've seen it with how they speak about, Mexican immigrants, Haitian immigrants, just immigrants from, I mean, yeah, like East Asian Chinese immigrants. Like I think that we need to realize that like the far right really does have a hatred for the quote unquote other, who they deem to be, anyone who does not have like a Western background. And even beyond that, like there is also, I feel like, I guess we'll say white American background as is the most accurate thing to say here. Um, I think that definitely the for 128 tweets to get 138 million views, that to me, those numbers show that there must have been some level of like just like virality, that these posts were going viral. And I think that yeah, I think that it's interesting now more than ever. I was I mean I think a couple of days ago, Steve Bannon accused Elon Musk of trying to establish a quote unquote techno feudalism on a global scale. I think we're seeing with the Trump, with Trump supporters and even within the Trump team, like there is a level of like a schism happening, on the H1B visa topic. You saw like Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, even Trump in the beginning, like they were posting in support of the H1B visa.
Mm.
And now we are potentially, we're seeing that a lot of his, supporters and just his advisors do not agree with that and want a more America focused, um, approach to work on varying on like a varying, I guess, more like, yeah, on a wider range of work. So I think that's also something that's interesting to see, just like how this is translating to potentially like policy decisions and stuff like that in the coming months. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch upon this Steve Bannon versus Elon Musk spat which is unfolding at the moment, and this visa thing is at the core of it. It's interesting because Musk has supported the visa, and yet at the same time this platform which has become more toxic, I think it's okay to say, since he has taken over, is something which has been used so in such a concentrated way to against a particular community. So I also want to overall, if you could comment on that, just like what exactly is the X experience now for people who are the other in certain countries, or even like in our countries, right? Because X has become a very um controversial space with some publications very publicly leaving. Like for instance, The Guardian one, some people don't agree with that. Like ceding space is not okay. For instance, if I look at dissidents and marginalized groups in Pakistan, they cannot afford to leave X, formerly Twitter, because I mean they have fewer places to disseminate their messaging and to campaign. But can you speak to us about what shape X is in when it comes to saying something which is important without being attacked?
Um, yeah, I mean, I can, that's a hard question. I will try. I think that, well, I think in terms of Elon Musk, I don't think that we should give much value to his support of the H-1B visa. Like, I think that he has also just consistently expressed far right views and sentiments, or opinions that align with the far right. He has expressed views that align with the Great Replacement theory, which is basically this idea that, like, again, this idea of the other in the eyes of white America, which is basically just non-white immigrants are going to come and replace, white Americans. Um, he has most recently backed the German far right group in the upcoming election. So I think time and time again he has shown his kind of allegiance to the far right and belief in these sentiments. And um, I think clearly, like, community notes, community regulation on X is inadequate. I think we can all kind of agree on that. Um I think that to a degree, like you said, I think just like in a lot of places, abandoning the app is just not feasible. That's something that we have to consider. Um, I also think, like, even from a personal experience, like, I think that I've just seen my algorithm, even though like regardless of what my algorithm is, I've noticed that, like, and this is my personal Twitter account, but I've noticed that, like, a lot of far right kind of content is just slowly seeping through my feed, and I think that that's something that I've been noticing, but that's just on a personal capacity. um I mean, I think that X is losing a lot of credibility because
Mm.
it's like, I think it's even like researchers and also individual users, everyone is kind of noticing that, like, oh, like, a lot of what is on here is not factually sound. A lot of what is gaining the most views is hateful. A lot of people who are from marginalized communities are generally shadow banned, and their content is not really reaching far audiences. Um, and yeah, so I think that if X want, and now you have this, like, Elon Musk is really trying to make X this quote unquote citizen journalism, like, platform, claiming that, yeah, mainstream media is done. Um, and I think if X wants to retain, people like users, a lot needs to happen. I think that um, they had dissolved their Trust and Safety Council in December of 2022. I think that this is something we all wrote in the report. Like, X must create a new advisory council to monitor the platforms and issue recommendations. X needs to stay up to date on hate hateful content, like, both in the South Asian context and beyond. Like, what is the root of these terms, or just these sentiments that are being spread around, and keep up to date with it so they can actively, prohibit it and remove this type of content. I think even with this idea of community notes, I mean, we saw, like, Meta recently, I believe, is shifting to a community notes model. I think that, like, community notes could, really be a way to add context, add like, fact checking to a lot of these posts and contradict a lot of these factual and fabricated claims. But again, like, there just needs to be a bit more of a proactive approach to that. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that I also think, like, it is X and it's Meta, and it's all of these social media platforms, right? Like, I don't think that any of them I think all of them need to have a more robust, system in combating hate speech and misinformation. And that's just not my opinion. That's a lot of, people's opinions. Yeah.
So, Deeksha, now that we have this research that you and your colleagues have carried out, what do you think the Indian American community would be thinking? Or how do you think such online racism connects to offline racism? When it comes to the community which is on the receiving end of such attacks, right? Considering that Trump is about to take oath, and despite the sort of back and forth and the spat between two, Musk and Bannon, the MAGA, Make America Great Again group, the far right ones, and other businessmen who support Trump, irrespective of what they're saying, there is this community which is caught in the middle of this spat, right, over the visas or whatnot. So, how do you look at it?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think it's an incredibly complex, conversation with a lot of contradictions. I think that um, on the one hand, you do have Indian Americans as a community who I think, especially in recent years, a lot of the divisions that exist in the community, I think a lot of people have been more, actively thinking about that. I mean, I think even with in California, with SB 403, with a state bill that would have, banned caste discrimination, with the fact that the Hindu far right and like just a very dominant caste, oppressor caste, community kind of really actively fighting against that. I think that um, in a lot of ways, I think that it's also this conversation also, I think it's important to contextualize Indian Americans as a very diverse group of people on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion. I mean, I in Edison, New Jersey, there was a bulldozer present at the Indian American Day Parade. I think that, like, again, like a part of this research does show that, yeah, white America just, thinks about brown people as brown people. But at the same time, I think that that can be do a lot of erasure. And we have to also realize that within our community, there is a lot of discrimination and hierarchy, that I think a lot of people are trying to unlearn. And a lot of people from these marginalized communities are like highlighting these things, and we should listen to them. And I also think even beyond the community, I think that again, like this conversation of good immigrant versus quote unquote illegal immigrant or bad immigrant, I think that a lot of I think a lot of people have thought that, Trump would be only targeting quote unquote illegal immigrants, people who have come here without documents. And I think that this is just a moment where we all have to do greater reflection on the fact that it doesn't matter how you came here. It doesn't matter if you were even born here to a degree. Like there's potential for you losing your citizenship and or your legality of being here. And this, I think, should be a moment where Indian Americans do a lot of that introspection and also express greater solidarity with other communities instead of, because I think just like I mean, there were so many Indian Americans who supported Trump, and who viewed themselves as this potentially like other, um, this I guess like POC community that can fit into Trump's America. But I think time and time again we're realizing that there is no place in Trump's America um, for people who are not white. And I think that this is a moment where also we have to, do a lot of introspection, like work through a lot of our own, unlearning and discrimination that we have, like experienced, and maybe even like discriminatory ways of thinking, and then also, yeah, build, solidarity with other communities who are also being targeted by Trump's vision.
Deeksha, thanks very much for speaking with us, and thanks to our viewers for watching this discussion. Khuda Hafiz.